Do you take calls in your business, and do those calls eventually lead to new clients or new prospects for you? So what I want to do is make sure that you have somebody amazing on the phone for you. But I know as a small business owner, you probably do not have enough cash to hire a full-time receptionist potentially right now. But it's extremely important. So I wanted to introduce a company that's amazing. They're called Ruby Receptionist. I have vetted them. If you can actually give them a call right now, you can vet them too. It's 855-518-RING. So you can give them a call. They're located in Portland, Oregon. They'll take messages, they'll transfer, they'll actually do follow-up calls and everything. I have talked to the most amazing assistants there at Ruby Receptionist, and they sound like they're coming from my company, which is a wonderful, amazing thing. The better thing is that I don't have to get distracted and take any phone calls, and neither does my assistant or anybody on my team, because Ruby Receptionist can do that. So please check them out. You can also go to callruby.com, but the phone number is 855-518-RING. Feel free to give them a quick call right now and see for yourself.
Potent advice and inspiration from real self-made millionaires. Welcome to The Eventual Millionaire with your host, Jaime Masters.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I'm Jaime Masters, and I'm so excited to have Derek Rydall back on the show again. I was enamored with him the first time, and he's coming out with a new book. It's called The Abundance Project. I know, right? I gush about my guests. I don't have very many back on twice. I really appreciate you being here. And the subtitle is 40 Days to Wealth, Love, and Happiness. And who doesn't want that? He also has a podcast by the same name, so check that out. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, thank you. It's my true honor and pleasure to be here.
So I remember last time you were on the show and I was like, oh, tell me all of your wisdom, right? And because you have another book called Emergence. You had a podcast called Emergence. What is different about this book? Because I love the 40-day like boot camp-ish feel to it.
It's exactly the same book, just new cover. And no, I'm just kidding. Well, the whole idea of emergence after I almost died twice, discovering what real self-growth looked like, is that life doesn't happen to you, it happens through you. That just like the tree is already in the seed, the pattern is there, the potential is there. When the conditions are right, when they match the pattern in the seed, its purpose, its potential naturally emerges. That's how all of nature unfolds. That's how the whole universe unfolded out of the quantum field. So emergence was this whole new paradigm that I discovered. Really, I didn't discover it. It's the great teachers, ancient masters, it's actually what they were teaching. It's just most people never understood it. And when I began to apply that, when I began to discover that most of my struggle to make my life happen and attract and achieve was actually blocking what was a more natural emerging process, then my life began to blossom. I went from being broke, suicidal, living on 19-cent boxes of macaroni and cheese in a little one-room apartment, to ultimately and pretty rapidly, my life growing, my work growing, moving into $1 million homes, traveling the world. All that efforting just started to blossom. And so that was the law of emergence and the whole emergence thing. And clearly there was a lot of abundance that came with that. But the core of the emergence work, the emphasis wasn't abundance. The emphasis was getting in touch with that seed pattern that's already within you, that true core potential and purpose. And then you could use it for any area of your life, whether it's your overall vision or purpose, your business, a project, a relationship. The whole paradigm of emergence works. But as I began to teach it more and more and more, and individuals who were particularly struggling with lack and stagnation and limitation in different parts of their life, I realized that one of the really core pieces of emergence was really the secret to abundance. And that is the stage 4, which is give what appears missing, which is based on the idea that whatever's missing is what you're not giving. And we've all know that giving is a good idea, that the generous giving nature tends to be good, but that isn't the whole story. It turns out that it's more about circulation, that circulation is the key to abundance. Wherever there's more circulation, there's more energy, there's more power, there's more growth, there's more green, whether it's green in nature or green in your bank account. Wherever there's more circulation, there's more abundance. And when there's lacking circulation, you end up with stagnation, diminishment, and ultimately the death of a system, whether it's an electrical system or your human body system or a nature system or a body of water. If there's no circulation in water, you get a swamp and you get a lot of mosquitoes. So that was the big discovery. And as I began to focus in on that idea, and I'm sure we'll unpack that more today, I realized that wherever people are struggling with stagnation, there's always a broken circuit. And when we could repair that circuit and get circulation going again in that area, all of a sudden life began to happen again, because that's what is necessary for life, is circulation. And really quickly, and then I'll give it back to you, because you got to shut me up, because once you pull that string.
No, I'm
I just,
getting all of this, but I do have so many questions. Continue.
You pull that string and he says like, there's no lack of circulation of words here. But if you look at words like currency, we think of as money. Well, it comes from the same root as current, which means flow. If you look at the word like affluent, which means rich, it actually comes from a root that means to flow. And so you see that in these very words that we talk about, economic words and all of this, there is this circulation. Is that your dog?
Totally.
It's the book Conversations with God. I want to write a book, Conversations with Dog, because it's how the universe is trying to speak to you right now. Your dog is like, I got something to say.
Oh, yes.
I understand what he's talking about. Why don't you humans?
Circulation, not a problem over there. Yeah.
Totally. So you look at all these words and you see that circulation, flow, and ultimately circuit becomes really, really key. And that the truth is embedded in the words we've been using. And ultimately, when I began to dig deeper and really apply that to my life and others, I watched as people went from being bankrupt to having more business than they could handle, make more in a month than they'd made in a year, but not just in money, as you'll see. Obviously, we're talking about money today because that's a focus, but ultimately realizing that the same substance that creates a wealthy bank account can also create a healthy body, can create abundance of love in your relationship or in your life, etc.
Okay, so I've never heard the circulation type, right? I've never heard it put in those aspects. So I want to unpack that times a million right now, because my whole thing is having people with a net worth of over $1 million, right? So I say you can make $1 million, but if you spend $1 million in one, that don't count, right? And so, but what's interesting is that sounds like that's a piece of the circulation. So how much is too much, and how do you get that flowing without necessarily losing it all, slipping through your fingers?
Right. So you're talking about what's the difference between just spending it all and having nothing left versus circulating it.
Yes.
Really important. First of all, I would decide to never again use the word spend, because when something's spent, it's gone. Right? I mean, that's what the word means. So instead, I would definitely focus more on circulating or investing or sharing, or, just words matter, and I'm not trying to be the semantic, Nazi here, but words matter. And so it's more about circulating. And we'll talk also about, at some point, about the real nature of money. Let me just talk about that for a moment here, because I think that's really important. The real nature of wealth is not dollar bills, is not those things that we call, the money itself. That's just a symbol of wealth. And just like on a fruit tree, all the fruit on the tree is not the wealth of the tree. It's the outer byproduct of the real wealth, which is the tree itself, which is the invisible mechanism that allows the tree to take the raw soil and use it to produce the sap and the flower and the blossom and the fruit. That's the wealth. That's why when the tree is barren, the farmer doesn't go, well, that tree's broke, let's cut it down. The farmer knows that tree is just as wealthy, and in perfect season, it will produce another harvest and another harvest and another harvest. It's like the goose and the golden egg. It's the same metaphor. They're getting all these golden eggs and they're like, let's cut open the goose and get all the gold and be done with it. And they cut open the goose and there's nothing in it but goose. It was this invisible mechanism that was producing the gold. And in fact, they did a study with the tree. They put it in a tub. They measured the volume of the soil.
Okay.
They grew the fruit, took off the fruit, shook off all the dirt off the tree, remeasured the volume of the soil, same volume. So that means that the tree grew the fruit and took nothing from the volume of the soil.
Huh.
And it kind of makes sense, because if it was true that you're using up the soil every time you grow, then the planet, we'd have no more dirt. We'd just be a little rock in the middle of space. So it doesn't even take anything from the soil unless you over farm and overgrow, and then we have the problems of depleting the minerals. That's not a problem of nature. That's just a problem of us not being in harmony with it.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, so where did it come from? Where did all of that substance that created all this abundance called the fruit come from? It's invisible. You could call it spiritual. You could call it consciousness. You could call it the same stuff that the Big Bang came out of. A lot of scientists say if you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. All of life is just matter, and everything is built off of matter. And they also believe in the Big Bang, which is everything came from nothing. So there's a big irony here. But we're designed to create the very same way. So the real substance of wealth and the real source of it is in us, is in our mind, in our consciousness, in our ability to literally from an idea begin to create and manifest out of seeming nothing, right? And if you look at that word, that saying, the love of money is the root of all evil.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's saying the love of the symbols of wealth, because that's all money is, as we're talking about now. It used to be, before it was dollar bills, it used to be chickens, right? Or furs. In fact, here's another one that you may or may not know. Salary, which we think of as the thing you get paid, it comes from the root salt, which is what the Romans were paid in.
Huh.
So that's why the word salary exists, is because Romans were paid in salt. And I'm saying this to say that money is just a story.
Mm.
It's just a story. And the real substance of wealth is not the piece of paper or the coin or the cryptocurrency or the salt that you're getting paid in. That's all representative of a flow, a current, a currency of intelligence and information and energy. And that is the real wealth. So when you're spending money, when you're circulating it, one of the things I talk about in the book is to begin to get into the practice of getting in touch with the energy of it. Really, when you're about to invest that money or circulate that money, become aware of all the ways it's blessed you, all the ways it's helped you, and all the ways it's going to help all the line in the chain of people it's going to touch. That dollar bill is going to be food for a child, education for someone else, groceries for someone else. It's going to help feed that farmer that's going to grow more food that will then come back around and feed you. And you begin to become aware you're participating in a stream of energetic circulation and flow. It's much more than just dollar bills. And you'll literally find yourself about to buy that milk or that coffee. By the time you get up to the line, if you go through this process, like, oh my God, this is amazing what I'm participating in. You thought you were just buying a coffee, but you're actually jumping into this river of inexhaustible abundance and circulating. And you'll feel so much more expanded, so much more excited about sharing and circulating. And now you're actually part of the process of real circulation. You're not just giving them $1 or whatever. What you've just exchanged is this energetic circuit. And so it's no longer just a transactional relationship. It becomes a transformational one. And you'll find you feel more abundant after you've circulated that dollar than you did before. Notice what just happened. Instead of I have $1 less, you now will feel like I am more as a result of that exchange. And this is not woo-woo, although for some of you it might sound like it. That energetic expansion, that mindset, that feeling like, whoa, I'm really a part of something miraculous here. I feel so good. This coffee I'm exchanging and circulating is actually, this money is going to bless all these people and add to the circle of life. I walk away feeling like, wow, I'm on purpose. I'm on mission. That is the consciousness of abundance. And that consciousness must begin to manifest itself as more abundance in your life, whether it's money or a wonderful exchange. You might feel so amazing and sit down to drink your coffee and sit down next to a beautiful man or woman and suddenly have a conversation. Before you know it, you're going on a date. And then you're like, holy smokes, like, look what just happened. And I've seen that happen more than once. So that's what we're really engaging in here.
Yeah. Okay. And what's crazy is people come to me because my show's all about millionaires, and they're like, "Well, they shouldn't be buying a $400,000 car." And when you think about all the people that it has helped, besides, I know we can go over corporate craziness, but still,
Sure, sure.
salaries and all the other everything in your house that you have has had a crazy journey to get to get here, no matter what it
Totally,
is, right? And so
totally.
you're expanding the reach of what our dollars can do. So where
Yeah.
or whatever our
And they
value
will do
exchange
more. And
is.
they will do more. It's not just going to impact you, that
Mm.
your state of mind really matters. I mean, by the way, just on an even more practical level, during the Great Depression, when everybody was in food lines and bread lines and people were starving and hungry, there was no lack of food. In fact, there was so much abundance of food not getting distributed and circulated, they had to drive it down in train loads to the ocean and burn it.
What?
So there was no lack. The lack was the mindset. The lack was the consciousness. Really smart economists will tell you that the greatest danger in the economy is not the actual economy, not the amount of dollars. It's the consciousness and the mindset of the people. Because the minute they get into a lack state and they start withholding on and hoarding, and they stop circulating, that's the key. They hoard it. Then what happens? The dollars aren't in circulation anymore. The lifeblood of the economy dries up, and it goes into cardiac arrest because it's not circulating. And that's all based on mindset. It's not like aliens came down and snatched up all the dollars. No, the wealth is still there. The opportunity is still there. Apples are still growing on trees during a recession. It's all still working. It's that we get into a mindset of lack and stagnation. We stop circulating our time, our talent, our treasure, and the whole thing grinds to a halt. It becomes a swamp
Okay.
until somehow, some way, people start circulating
So
again.
how do we take that and figure out what's stagnant in us? Because it's one thing to see like, okay, that makes logical sense. The whole and everybody does something and it affects everything else.
Yes.
Where do we find stagnation in us, especially because you just said it was invisible and intangible, and how do we actually unclog ourselves?
Well, wherever you are experiencing lack, there is some form of stagnation, right? And so let's kind of take a step back maybe and just sort of build a little bit of the foundation so people know really kind of some of the bricks of this particular structure.
Perfect.
The first thing, as I said, is that what I call the great reversal. We have to come to realize that life doesn't happen to us, it happens through us. It comes from us. In fact, the word human comes from a Sanskrit term, MN, man, that means the dispenser of divine gifts. Now, whether you believe in woo-woo stuff or spirituality, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to believe in it. But when you practice it, you'll discover it's a real principle. For example, you can experience this right now. You can be right where you are and imagine I called you up and said you won the lottery. You just won $10 million. Suddenly you're feeling amazing, right? You're like, oh my God, you're like suddenly full of energy and joy, and it's springtime again, and the flowers are blooming and the birds are singing their song to you. Now I call you back a couple minutes later and go, oh my God, I'm so sorry, wrong number, big mistake, you didn't win. Now you're feeling horrible. You want to crawl into bed. You find yourself at the freezer eating Ben and Jerry's. And so what happened there? Nothing changed in your world. You suddenly gave a meaning to your life that gave you permission to activate and really unleash feelings and energy. Well, where did that all come from? Did it come from the phone call? Of course not. There wasn't like it didn't secrete some kind of secret mist into your brain and then cause
Ooh.
you to feel great. It was 100% coming from you. The joy, the peace, the freedom, the energy. You probably suddenly had all these amazing inspired ideas. All of that was activated in you. You are a divine power plant. And a power plant doesn't receive the energy. It doesn't even just have the energy. It generates it out of seeming nothing, out of the friction and the mechanism of electroconductivity. So that all came from you. And that's true for every quality you think is missing in your life. The peace, the love, the joy, the power, the sense of confidence and abundance that would cause you to take more bold action in your life and in your business, that would cause you to write that book, build that program, launch that business, go out there and knock on 1,000 doors. All of that comes from you. It doesn't come from any condition. So that's the first thing we have to understand. We have to just accept everything that I need to be, all that I was created to be, is in me. The second piece is that whenever you start to make anything outside of you your source, the universe is set up to fail you. It's set up to start creating problems, creating resistance, and fail you. Why? Because it's not your source. And you're putting your power outside. You're selling off your power for a temporary piece of security, but eventually you won't have the capacity to keep sustaining that, right? And then the third piece is what we already talked about, that wealth is invisible, spiritual, energetic, your consciousness, your mind. Once you know all of that, now the obvious question is, okay, Derek, how do we start getting this out? How do we start generating, right? Is that what you're talking about? How do we start generating that? So I created in the book a framework that I call the 7 gifts that give you everything, or the 7 wealth activators. And what these are is basically 7 channels that you can start circulating through. And we can talk about that more, or if you have any other questions about what I talked about there, Jaime, you can certainly.
So many questions. Everybody get the book so that way you can read all of it. We can't cover it all in one little spot.
So before we jump into these 7 channels or 7 gifts, is there any other burning questions you have about that whole foundation so that we know we've sort of unpacked? Go ahead.
Because we have to get the foundation right in order to even build on top of it, right?
Absolutely.
So on the second piece, do you have an example of that? Like when you give your power out, what does that mean? Can you give me an example of what that looks like?
Well, I can tell you in my own personal experience what happened years ago when this really dropped home for me. And I was doing all this deep inner work. I'd become kind of a monk in my own apartment after trying to be a real monk. Didn't work. I think I told this story last time, but I tried to become a monk and I got freaked out the first week being silent and fasting. And I broke into the monk's kitchen in the middle of the night and stole food out of the refrigerator. So that didn't, the monastic life wasn't right for me. But so I was in my apartment doing this work. And at a certain point, I started to run out of money. And I went broke basically, and I was literally living on a prayer and about to be evicted. And literally just, there was nothing, there was no options, no human way for me to pay for anything. And I got really, really pissed off. And one night I sat down in my faux leather meditation chair and was like, I'm not getting up until I know the truth. It was like that Gary Sinise moment from Forrest Gump where it's like, bring it on, God. I'm like, this is either a bunch of BS or this is real, but I'm not getting up until I know either way. They're going to have to pry my cold, lifeless hands from this faux leather chair because I'm not moving. And at some point in the middle of the night, after wrestling with my demons and being pinned to the floor over and over again, something cracked open. And this voice or energy said to me, you made your savings account your source, your God, and thou shalt have no other gods before me. I literally heard that. And I swear, I expected to turn around and see Charlton Heston holding a big tablet, he played Moses, and I was like, what? And it began to tell me that I had made my savings account my source. I basically had a savings account on Nest Egg, and I didn't want to spend it, so I started putting everything on credit card. And little bit by little bit, my credit card debt got maxed out. And then I had to spend the savings anyways. And now I was broke and in debt. And it said that, and it began to tell me this whole realization that you made something outside of you your source. And as a result, you gave away all your power. You twisted yourself in this little pretzel trying to manipulate and manage and control your life. And now I was just it was like a hose. I had crimped it so much there was nothing coming out of it anymore. And it said, you have to the universe is set up to fail you when you do this, so you can come back to the real source within you, to no longer lean on resource, but to lean on the source and begin to engage in that again. Because if you're giving your power away to some job, some person, some partner, believing they're your source, what happens? You have to start, being manipulative. You have to start deciding, should I say this? Can I be this? Can I be who I really am? Can I say what I really need to? What if they don't like it? What if they reject me? Then I'll lose that love, that job, that money, that security. See, it's this whole big human game. And so we're constantly negotiating with our true self and our authentic self and our real power and message around making sure I can hold on to what I have and nobody will take it away, or making sure I can still get what they've got of mine so that I'm going to be safe. That's the whole human drama. And it was saying,
yay,
right? As a result of that, you're constantly negotiating with your truth. He's being a jerk, but if I really tell him that, he might leave me and then I'll be alone. And what if he's the best guy for me? Yeah. Or my boss is treating me terribly and they're not respecting me. If I really show up and stand in my power, what if they fire me and I don't have a job? And so we're always negotiating because we don't have our power. So it was just showing me this whole thing. And then as it did that, this peace began to come over me. And I felt this inner connection again. I felt that the agency, the locus of control was in me again, that I'm the power, I'm the answer, I'm the salvation I'm waiting for, not my bank account, not anybody outside of me. And I could feel it again. And it's important, I could feel it. And this peace descended over me like I'd never felt, and I fell asleep. And I woke up the next couple of days, I was walking around just in peace, even though nothing had changed. And then I got a call from my former acting agent who said, I know you don't do commercials anymore because you're too spiritual, but I was crazy. But they just called looking for you out of the blue. And I said, okay, I know that's an answered prayer. I went on the audition, I booked it. They broke it into 2 commercials, and I made more for 2 days' work than I never made in an entire year. But it wasn't just the money that came in and the opportunity that happened just like that, and that it was completely outside of my self-concept. I would have never thought to even go in that direction. And notice I didn't put any effort into that. I opened up and became connected again, and that showed up as the quickest way to solve my problem and to create real abundance. But what it really became was about this new path of learning to lean and live more from insight than eyesight, to not judge by appearances to determine how much I have, how much I'm worth, what's possible, but to begin more and more leaning into these principles we're talking about. And as a result of that, that's how I began to grow myself out of that. And my life just began to flourish in a much bigger way. And over again, this has happened where I was in the job from hell, and instead of leaning on the job and worrying what they would think of me, I asked myself, if I was already living the abundant life, if I was already living my dream life, what would that look like? How would I feel? How would I hold myself? How would I show up? Not, I better be careful, they may not like it, they're going to think I'm weird, they're going to fire me. But if I was already the person I want to be, what would I start bringing to that? More joy, more excellence, more service, more inspiration. And as I did that, I got lit up again. I came alive again. And I did get fired 3 times from that job. I don't know if we talked about this one last time.
I remember. Everybody go listen to that one because it's a good story.
Yeah. I got fired 3 times. And every time I got fired, I dug in more deeply because they would hire me back. Finally, when I got fired, about a month and a half later, I got hired working in the job I loved, performing, consulting, teaching. And I went from making $50 a day to $1,000 a day. And but the key is that I didn't get that new job in the month span after I got fired. I grew into it by bringing all of me to that space that I was planted in the job from hell. And I've done that with my wanting to get my dream home. I've done that with wanting to travel the world on a tour where there was no resources, where I had no idea how to do it. And instead of looking at my external resources, bank account, people, whatever the experts say, and then leaning on that, I worked these exact principles I talk about in the Abundance Project, and in every case, grew myself to the next level and the next level and the next level.
Okay, so unpacking some of this, correct me because this is how I see it, but correct me. So it's less about removing, like severing the attachment to the outside stuff, because that's the hard thing. Telling an entrepreneur to let go is a difficult thing, right?
Yeah,
So
they
it's
need something else to focus on.
That's exactly. So you're saying instead turn the focus inward, but not just because you were very spiritual, right? So like not just turn it inward and meditate, but turn it
Correct.
inward to embody where you are right now as if you were where you want to be.
Yeah, and you're not going to just be sitting around meditating and oming and thinking something's going to show up at your front door. Absolutely not. That's a big mistake a lot of people with the whole law of attraction thing kind of didn't understand. Action is just as much a part of your mindset and your consciousness as the thinking and the feeling part and the seeing part. You need all of it. You need to see it, you need to think it, you need to feel it, and you need to do it. You need to act as if. You need to realize that you're not on your way to something. You're not, a sunbeam isn't on its way to the sun, right? It's coming from the sun. The branch of a tree isn't on its way to the branch, it's coming from the tree. The wave of the ocean isn't on its way to the ocean, it's a way the ocean is expressing. You're not on your way to wealth, health, love, happiness, success. You're never, ever, ever going to get there if you think you're on your way there. You can only get there if you realize you're starting there, that you are coming from.
Yeah.
Yes.
The reason why I'm saying this is because everybody comes back at me and goes, but your site is called Eventual Millionaire. That means you will never get there. And in my head, I go, well, I also want Eventual Billionaire. So there's, that's fine too.
There's that too, right?
But I've had so many people tell me to change the name of the show because of that, because there's that language does matter also, but because it makes it not like you never actually reach it.
Yeah. But I know what you mean by eventual millionaire. It means you're unfolding that potential, right? You could also say potential millionaire, eventual millionaire. It's the same basic idea. And it's true. You're not just a millionaire or a billionaire. You're in infinity air, whatever. You have infinite abundance, infinite potential. You'll never, ever, ever get to the end of what you are. But the key is understanding that you have to start from the consciousness and the mindset that you're coming from it rather than on your way to it. And that doesn't mean you're going to instantly manifest millions, but it means that you're already there and you're not on your way to try to get, attract, achieve, just like the seed, the acorn isn't on its way to eventually becoming an oak. The oak is already in there. It's on its way to unfold and unravel and unleash its oakness.
Well, how do you do that though? Like a seed, you're like, oh, then I plant it and I water it and I do these things and then it will blossom. Otherwise it will die, right? So what do we do?
Do it the same way, exactly the same way. What do you do when you plant the seed? First of all, you understand what is the nature of the seed. And then you understand, so what kind of conditions does this seed need for it to flourish, for it to emerge? And then you cultivate those conditions, right? A farmer or a gardener is not so arrogant to think or naive to think they can make a plant happen. They know they can't make the plant happen. All they can do is make it welcome. They can create the conditions that match the pattern already in the seed.
I like it.
And then if they do that, you get alignment and that starts to unfold, right? Like a radio station is already broadcasting right where you are with songs and information that would just inspire you, just like hopefully this is. But it's not manifest in your experience until your frequency dials in and becomes in alignment with that frequency. The minute there's alignment, that station becomes manifest, or you have a manifestation. And so the point, the same thing is true with you. Your desire for wealth and abundance and success and impact, that desire is, the word desire comes from a root of the sire, of the father, or of the creative impulse. That burning desire is not a sign of what's outside of you that you need to go get. It's actually a sign of what's already in you trying to get out. It's like being pregnant. You feel the kick of the baby. That's equivalent to the kick of that desire. That's telling you you've already got it. You already have it, or you wouldn't. It's like if you strike a violin on stage, all the violins in the orchestra pit will vibrate to that same note. If you remove that string from them, they will not vibrate no matter how often you strike it. So the fact that you feel that burning desire means it's already in you. You're already starting from having it. Okay? So like a pregnant woman doesn't go, "Ooh, I feel the kick. Oh, I want a baby so bad. I'm going to go out and try to get a baby now."
Yeah.
That's what we do. We feel that kick of desire. I want to be a millionaire. I want to build a business. I want to make a difference and an impact. Now I got to go out and make it happen. No, you have to recognize it's already happening. That's why you feel that. And now you have to bring your life into alignment with that seed pattern. You have to begin to say, if I was already living this, what would my habits of thinking be, my habits of feeling, my habits of being, and my habits of doing? Those are the 4 quadrants or 4 pillars of fulfilling your true potential. Habits of thinking, feeling, being, and doing. And then you begin to articulate that. And then instead of waiting for some condition or person or approval to really lean into that and live from that and as that, you start living that life today. You start activating those habits today. And as you do that, you literally change your character. And when your character changes, your destiny does. So you're becoming, as Gandhi said, you must become the change you want to see in the world. So instead of going out there and making the change, I'm going to make a million. No, become the change. Become the individual who already is a millionaire, who already has that character. I remember one piece of practical advice a really amazing woman gave me. She said, imagine add a 0 onto your current revenue. Now, if that was your revenue, how would you show up to work tomorrow?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right?
Yeah.
How would you show up to your business tomorrow?
Yeah.
See how now suddenly how it would be a very different state. You would invest more. You might circulate more. You might play bigger. And a part of you is like going to go, "Oh my God, I can't do that. That's crazy. I'm not that." That's what's stopping you.
Yes.
That is that mindset. Not that you don't have that much money or whatever. And that we think we're going to wait to have the money, wait to have the opportunity, wait to have the time, the energy, the clarity, the inspiration. No, it's exactly the opposite. Whatever you wait for, you are actually weighing down. And so this is the ultimate weight loss program.
That's good.
And so you have to actually open up and let it out of you. That's what the poet Robert Browning was talking about when he said, you must release the imprisoned splendor. It's in you. And if you're waiting for anything outside of you to change, you will be waiting forever. So hopefully that begins to explain a little bit of what we're talking about.
Yeah, I could go on for a really long time because the things that came up for me as we were going through this is that for me, especially at the very beginning when I was not confident at 20 something years old, like just pushing as hard as I possibly can to what I embody now, which everyone's like, you are so confident. And I forget what it was like to be not confident because I feel like I've always been confident now. Right?
Exactly.
But that's with anybody I've interviewed with any of these things, when you live it and embody it, it's like a no-brainer. And going though from the gap of not feeling it to the gap of feeling it is that crux where everyone's like, oh, right?
Yes.
So I love that little tactic.
And we forget that. Right? But if you look at people, and you really read their stories and you look at people like Elon Musk, or you look at Walt Disney, or you look at Oprah, you look at just all these people, they didn't get the outer validation and approval. Yeah, man, great idea. People thought Einstein was crazy. They thought Mother Teresa was crazy. They thought Oprah was crazy, like she's going to blow everything to try to do all this talk show spiritual stuff. Elon Musk lost almost everything in trying to launch his stuff and was literally having to borrow money and sleep on a friend's couch after having made tens of millions of dollars. Walt Disney went bankrupt a couple of times trying to create the happiest place on earth. So, these people didn't wait for the conditions. They became the conditions. They leaned into it. They began to live from it, from a vision. They had a vision. They had a dream. They had an idea that was compelling them. And if you don't have that, if you don't have an idea that is really compelling you, that is pulling you, you definitely have to start there. That's very important because that's the seed speaking to you. If the seed is not speaking to you yet, if all you have, your vision is just merely making more money or making more money so you're not stuck, that for some of you that might be enough if it's really compelling. There's some people where the idea of making money is as compelling as saving, hungry children. And that is definitely something they're compelled by. But most people have a bigger flat screen TV than they do a vision for their life. So you have to have a compelling vision. That in other words, you have to tap into that seed of potential and purpose in you and begin to understand and articulate, who am I really? What am I really here to be, do, create, and contribute? And then you can build from that, and you can reverse engineer these 4 pillars we're talking about. The habits of thinking, feeling, being, and doing, and start creating a way of life and a daily practice so that you're living it. And one other little quick thing about this. As you start to really live it, like I did in that job from hell, you'll start to get lit up. You'll start to be inspired and empowered and on fire, even when the conditions don't match it. And you'll start to experience what it really feels like and tastes like to be free. Because I was on fire at that job. I was given 5-star service in a 3-star restaurant. And I even wrote an article after how I stopped waiting and started serving. And I realized, wow, I can feel amazing. I can be inspired. This state that I was in, this is what everybody's going for. I've already got it. This is the thing I thought I would get once I had the money and the job. I've already got it. Oh my God, I can go to the real prize now. I don't have to, purchase my joy and my freedom with some kind of external condition. I can step into it and activate it now. That's a realization that until you have that experience directly, it's like trying to tell you what apple pie tastes like if you've never tasted it.
Yes.
You have to have that experience. So that's what I want. That's freedom, that's power, and that's where the greatest work you'll ever do will begin to come from.
Oh, okay. So, I remember hearing way back when the only reason why we want anything, a new Tesla, a new whatever it is, especially material stuff, is for the feeling we're going to have when we get it, right? And that makes logical sense. You're like, okay, great, that makes logical sense. But what you're saying, which I think is a bigger distinction, people like Oprah, huge vision, or whatever, the even people I've interviewed that have gone through bankruptcy can look at an external situation of bankruptcy and not let that change their emotional state. Exactly. And then they only look at themselves, which is literally like, oh, you're a god, right? Right? You make your own, you've mastered your emotions. And I think this is one of the reasons why I love business. It makes you master emotions because we live like this, up and down and up and down. I'm a coach. I deal with all the crap that people deal with and all the wonderful things. And I can see who they are when they're living the worst of the worst because it's easy for me. It's way harder for them, right? So is the processes that you have in your book going to help you get to that? That's mastery, right? And it
is totally.
Oh, totally. Tell me more. How do you get to that?
Absolutely, and it is mastery, and it's rare for a person to be free all the time, and so it's more of a scale. You start to notice that there's a spectrum where at first you're just all in it. You're just a reaction. You're just a ball of reaction. Most people don't actually have free will because free will is a function of expanded awareness, meaning you've got enough space in your awareness that a stimulus can arise and you don't react to it because you got enough space around it. That's the real meaning of responsibility, the ability to respond rather than to react. So when you finally have space, you can go, oh, there's that pattern, there's that pattern, there's that pattern. Now I get to choose whether I'm going to react or respond. That's the beginning of real choice and real free will.
Because before I would try and mitigate all the external things. If I can make all of these people do all of these things, then I can be good on my own.
Yeah, and what you didn't realize was that you weren't even present there. That was just a program running. Yeah. That was just a pattern of reaction running. There was no free will. There was no real choice. Yeah. You were sleepwalking, dreaming you were awake. And so beginning to see what's really running you is the beginning of real freedom. It's not always easy. It's like that old saying, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. And so it's difficult, but that's the process of getting free. And once you start to get free, you not only are able to have the feeling of joy or peace or happiness independent of circumstances, which is, by the way, the only place those qualities really exist. They have no connection to conditions. We've just created that story. But then you're also now available to your real unique genius and that circulation, that river, that flow that's always flowing that you can now step into. Whereas before you're like off in the woods somewhere, just trying to figure your way out, but there's this river that's always flowing. And once you have that level of openness, you can step into it and start going with that flow.
I get that all the time. People are like, "Why are you so happy?" I'm like, "Why wouldn't I be?" Like, because
right.
Why wouldn't I? I can choose to be happy, and I have, and I don't want to say control, but I can open up to it, right? Instead of letting it run me, because I used to think emotions ran you until I thankfully learned a little bit more. Took a long time.
Yeah, the emotion, and it does take practice. It really does. I haven't mastered it, but you find that spectrum where at first you're just reacting, then you notice you react, but then you recover quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And then you notice it coming up in you and you see the reaction happening, and then you choose not to react. And that's the beginning of like, oh my God, I didn't react to that this time. That's new. And then eventually you notice it arises, you're able to hold it, witness it, you don't react to it, and it dissolves back down again. And I've literally seen this. I remember once this person was all angry at me, coming at me about something, and I noticed the reaction bubbling up in me. And I think I just had a really good meditation or something, so I was really spacious. And I observed the reaction in me as I was also listening to them. And as I held that reaction that wanted to defend myself or prove my point, it dissolved in me. That energy just kind of went. And the exact moment that it dissolved, they took a breath. They went, I don't know, maybe it's not you. I just been having a hard time. Like their whole energy dissipated. They actually could not be angry at me anymore. And they suddenly had a realization of what it was really about. And they began to cry, and we ended up hugging, and they were thanking me. So it's like, who changed?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. If you keep pushing, the other person keeps pushing. If you just let go, they got nowhere to go.
There's nowhere to go. And suddenly, poof, transformation happened. And that happens in our own life too. When we're able to look at that reaction and allow it to be transmuted, then all of a sudden there's new energy, there's inspiration, new avenues open up that we couldn't see before. Flow starts happening again. The circuit gets reconnected again, and we move out of stagnation into a greater and greater circulation. And then suddenly we've had those moments, right? Sometimes it comes after a lot of pain, and we finally just throw our hands up, we surrender. And in that moment of opening, that channel opens up again and energy starts circulating again. Suddenly we have an idea or the phone rings, but we've rarely made the connection. Why did that work? And this is explaining why that happens when that happens. You got back into the circulation again. You reconnected that broken circuit, and all of your efforting and struggling was the thing crimping the hose and blocking the flow. And I talk about the hose analogy in the book for those of you who are like, why does he keep bringing up the hose? What's that about?
I know you have to read the book because it goes into way more detail than we can get into. But I think the whole point, and this is why I love having you or people that do have a little bit more of the spiritual bent of this on the show, is because we're here to enjoy our journey. And yet, a lot of times, even in business, we are not enjoying the journey at all. Even though everybody says it, it's that cliche, you enjoy the journey. Well, what does that actually mean? It's a daily thing of us managing / mitigating / enjoying the evolutionary process of us, right? And getting better and better
Absolutely.
as a human.
And I want to say also, I know this whole idea of it's the spiritual stuff. I want to, allay some people of whatever fears, concerns, doubts, resistance, skepticism. All spiritual really means. Spiritual doesn't mean angels and crystals and upside down pyramids and incense and sitting in lotus and chanting Om. Those are all unique expressions of people's ideas of what it looks like. But the word spiritual, what it really means is that which is changeless, that which is eternal, or that which is invisible. It's about principles. It's very much like science. We just don't yet have the full science to measure these principles, but we can practice them. That if you look at the greatest teachings, they were teaching principles. If you peel away the dogma and the doctrine and the cultural idioms of whatever religion or philosophy, at root, if it's an enduring teaching, it's because it's teaching principles. It's not personal. It's not about being a moral or good person. At root, these teachings are about, these are universal principles just as powerful and potent as the laws of aerodynamics or buoyancy or whatever. And when you understand and practice these principles, you will start to get repeatable and expectant results. That's all spirituality is. It's just dealing with principles, like you've heard the word metaphysical. That means beyond the physical universe or principles. There's still principles. And we know that because most of what we value in our life the most, love, connection, inspiration, creativity, no scientist can explain. No scientist can measure, can't measure love.
Yes.
You don't know, just because somebody kisses somebody, that's not love. Love is not about what it looks like. So the things we care about most are spiritual. They are something very real that are based on these deep universal principles. So that's all we're talking about. And what I'm actually talking about with the law of circulation and all of that is a natural principle. This is something you see everywhere in any natural system, or even in a mechanical system. If there's circulation, there's energy, there's power, there's abundance, there's growth, there's progress. If there's not circulation, there's stagnation, diminishment, breakdown, and ultimately the death of a system. That's not woo-woo, folks. No. That's real. So I want you guys just to know that if there's any part of you that resists and goes, I just want to know how to make more money, man, and build my business, we're talking about that. And absolutely, you're going to be more active, doing more, getting more. I mean, I'm a content creating machine. I'm not sitting around in lotus position all day. I'm doing it. I'm working hard, and I'm building stuff and creating stuff. The difference, when it works, is where I'm coming from. As it says in one of the old axioms, what is it? To he who does all the right things, if he has the wrong state of mind, it will still turn out wrong. But for he or she who does all the wrong things, if they have the right state of mind, it will still turn out right. So this is not insignificant. The place you start from very much determines where you end up. Because when you get there, you realize there was here all along.
One of the reasons why I started the show was because I wanted to know if a millionaire thought they were going to be a millionaire before they actually became one, right? And the data said that it didn't matter either way, but the belief was still underlying that they could do it. Even if they didn't know that they could do it at the beginning, they knew they could do it. And that blew my mind, right? Because I didn't realize that had such a big difference. But like you said before, and this is what I think is the point, and extremely important to get these tactical, amazing business owners that are listening, right, to know, is that our science has not caught up with everything.
Exactly.
It's still a baby.
Exactly.
Science doesn't know.
I mean, just 100 years ago, if you had, talked about this strange little box that takes pictures and videos and can communicate with people across the world, this thing, people would have burned you at the stake. They would have thought you were a witch. They would have said you were insane. You were crazy. That's the most irrational, unscientific thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
So what we take for granted today was crazy and insane as anything 100 years, 1,000 years ago. And what you think now today is just woo-woo, airy-fairy, gobbledygook, this will be taken for granted 10 years, 20 years, 100 years from now. It's the same thing.
Yep.
So we have to not be so arrogant and so narrow-minded to miss that most obvious fact that most of what we take for granted today, if somebody was talking about it, around the fire in the tribe, a couple hundred years ago or five, they would have said, you are insane, you are crazy, There's no data to back that up, you know, totally,
Yeah.
right? Invisible things moving through the air and creating music or sound. They'd be like, what? What have you been smoking out in the jungle, my friend?
Seriously.
So we got to remember that whenever we find ourselves going, oh, this is too woo woo, this is airy fairy. Everything you do today is airy fairy 100 years ago. So just remember
We're the
that.
old curmudgeons of the of the future.
Yeah,
Darn it. No. But opening your mind to that. That's why I do this show. And I know we have to start wrapping up because I was running so far over, but you know I love you. I would love to have you on the show again. Write more books, please. So
absolutely.
that way we can talk about
We
more.
can do it. We could do a part two if you want. If you need to get down and dirty.
Because there's so many more nuances to diving deeper into this, especially depending on the path where people are, right? So
Yeah.
I'm going to ask
Talk
the.
about, yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I know I have to. We're just going to keep talking forever if I don't actually do the last question, Derek. Okay,
Go
so
for it.
what is one action? Because we went through a lot, but one action, because my people love action, that listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of 1 million, besides buying your book and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, definitely buying the book. But because we're going to support you when you do and creating your own abundance project and all that. There's two possible actions. I want to just split it up into two possibilities because I love both of them. One of them is what we already talked about is take some time to get really clear on the thing you want to create in your life. Your that vision that just makes you come alive, that is just so juicy. And like Howard Thurman says, don't ask what the world wants, ask what makes you come alive and do that, because what the world really wants and needs are people who have come alive. So get clear on that vision, articulate it, define it, refine it, and then ask those questions. If I was already living that, and you can use visualization, whatever, to be in it, see it, feel it, what would be my habits of thinking, feeling, being, and doing? What I mean by that is, if you already had all this money or whatever, probably when problems arose and challenges arose, you would have a different mental habit of how you responded. Maybe now your response is to go, what's wrong with me? Or why is this not working? And kind of as a default to go, why isn't this working? Or when is this ever going to work? Or looking for the problem to protect yourself. Whereas if you already had that wealth, you would probably have a mental habit of when stuff came up, you would default to looking for the opportunity, looking for the growth opportunity, looking for getting excited because it means you're about to grow and be stronger. That's a different mental habit, and you can practice that. So there's also emotional habits. There's habits of being, if you were living that life, who would you be? Would you be more generous? Would you be more playful? Would you be more outgoing? Would you be more bold? These are things you can actually practice. So look at those 4 quadrants, the habits of thinking, feeling, being, and doing, and then ask yourself, how can I begin to bring that to my life, my job, or whatever today? And actually write it down and sit with it for a moment, and ideas will start to bubble up. You might say, okay, maybe playful is a habit of being. What would it look like for me to be more playful in my life now, or in this relationship, or at my job? And suddenly insights will bubble up, and some of them will be ones you've already had, and you'll be like, oh yeah, I remember thinking of that idea, but I told myself I couldn't do that, or they think I'm weird, or I don't have the money or the time. That's how you know you're really on track, because you start to remember all the little impulses you've been having but denying, all the little yeses that you've been saying no to. And so life is on your side, but now you have to get on your own side. And so that will help you do that. So I invite you to do that and actually practice. And you can find somebody to do it with, some accountability partners, so that you can share it. And that way you don't get to hide, and they can say, well, did you do that? And you're like, I better do that because I have to talk to them tomorrow. I better find some way to be more playful today. Get accountability. That's the way you get leverage on yourself. One other quick possibility. Look at your life wherever something feels stagnant right now, where something feels missing. Like in a relationship, you're like waiting for them to validate you or value you or respect you or love you. And instead, I want you to turn that around. I want you to ask, if I totally loved, valued, respected myself, how would I show up in this relationship? What would I start doing or stop doing? What would I do differently? So instead of waiting for them, the boss, the partner, the parent, whatever, if I loved myself, valued myself, respected, appreciated, whatever it is. And you're going to again notice real guidance is going to bubble up. You'd be like, oh, yeah, I would have this conversation with them. I would tell them, this isn't okay. I really need this, or whatever the case may be. Again, that's showing you where something has been trying to circulate in your life, but you've not let it. That's why there's stagnation. Practice that and watch as the circulation starts happening again and things start opening up for you again.
And having the courage to take that action and actually do that.
Yeah.
And then you can start seeing
Well, you
results
have two choices. You can have the courage to take that action and start the circulation again, or start preparing for more stagnation.
They're like, oh, thanks, Derek. Darn it.
You only have two choices. choose life or choose death. Choose growth or choose stagnation. And it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm scared half the time with everything I go for.
Thank you.
But I just tell fear, hey, fear, you can get in the back seat because we're going anyway. You know, hey, fear, you want a beer? Want a cup of tea? We're going anyway, right? So bring fear with you, but do it. And then let us know what happens.
Adore this. Okay, so give us the website. I know you have bonuses for the book and all that fun stuff too. There was a mastermind thing or a whole bunch of bonuses. So go ahead and give that info now that people are chomping at the bit.
Yeah, by the way, I really do encourage you, get your fear drunk. And when fear is just drunk, it's not going to be able to cause you a problem anymore. Just keep handing fear a beer in the back seat, you know. So they're going to be like, wait, what?
I've never heard that before. I'm going to use that now.
So this guy's crazy. You can go to theabundanceprojectbook.com. That's www.theabundanceprojectbook.com. And when you get the book through that site, through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, whatever, and leave your info there, I'm going to give you $1,238 in real bonus programs and coaching. There's no filler here. There's no fluff. This isn't those free bonuses that are just garbage, you know, coupons and stuff. This is actually real coaching with me, a real mastermind where you're going to get support in creating your abundance project and other really good stuff. So I think the book is like $15 or something, or less if it's Kindle, and you're going to get the $1,238 in bonuses. So go to theabundanceprojectbook.com, grab it there. You can also check out my new podcast, The Abundance Project, or my previous podcast, which is still going, Emergence, and really master the foundational principles of emergence for your overall life, and then listen to The Abundance Project. People are telling me they're listening to The Abundance Project right now, like over and over and over again. So there's something really powerful happening with these particular episodes. So definitely check that out.
And you can meet more like-minded people too, because that's the other thing. Some people in the middle of nowhere are like, everybody thinks I'm crazy when I talk about this stuff. And getting around people that also think this way makes it a lot easier to not think that you're crazy, right?
Absolutely. I'll say one quick thing about that. Everybody thought I was crazy. My family was sure I'd freaked out on Jesus or joined a cult. My dad was afraid for my life. My mom was afraid for my life. My brother was like, did you get a lobotomy? Friends started disappearing. I mean, I was alone for a moment. And as I just did what I'm telling you, I began to just show up anyway, bring the full self me anyway. What happened is a world began to blossom around me. And now I'm surrounded by tens and tens and tens of thousands of people that are just as crazy as me. And so instead of me trying to conform and hope people would like me and try to fit in, I had to be myself fully. I had to show up fully. Now I'm surrounded. And then one by one, all of my family came back. They're like, what's happening over there? They're like, what are you up to? And suddenly now they're on their own path and they're doing their own work. But I had to be a stand for me first. So you got to be a stand for you, and we will show up around you, and you'll be surrounded by a whole lot more freaks and crazy people, because that's who rules the world, is the freaks. You know, in the Bible it says the meek shall inherit the earth. It was a typo. It really was the freak shall inherit the earth.
Perfect. I love being around all the freaks. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Derek. I really, 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 really appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's my joy, my pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that interview. And if you want to check out more amazing resources, I'm only curating the best of the best. Go check out eventualmillionaire.com. You can take the Eventual Millionaire quiz, figure out where you are in business and what you need right now. Plus, you can look at curated resources specifically for you on the new Start Here page. I'm so excited. Please join us. Please let me know if you need anything at all. I'm here for you. And have a fantastic day. Bye.